On this example, we want to factor completely using the formula for sum and difference of cubes. Let's write that formula down first. Sum of cubes is a cubed plus b cubed, and that's going to factor into a plus b times a squared minus ab plus b squared. The difference of cubes, a cubed minus b cubed, is a minus b times a squared plus ab plus b squared. Very similar formulas, just a couple differences in the pluses and minus signs. You can remember those with SOAP, same, opposite, always positive. So these first sign will be the same as the original, the next sign will be the opposite of the original, and the last sign is always positive. So in our example, we have w cubed plus 27, and we want to factor using this sum or difference of cubes formula. We have a sum, we have w cubed, we just need to check to see if 27 is a perfect cube, and it is. 27 is 3 cubed. So now that we know we have a sum of cubes, we're going to follow that pattern for the sum of cubes, and the pattern requires us to know a and b. We have a being w and b being 3. So following that pattern, we have a plus b, w plus 3, a squared, that's w squared, minus ab, that's minus 3w, and plus b squared, plus 3 squared. So simplifying that, we'll have w plus 3 times w squared plus 3w plus 9. So we factored w cubed plus 27 to be w plus 3 times w squared plus 3w plus 9. In this question we have solve the equation 5x squared plus 22x plus 8 equals 0. We want to solve this by factoring the left-hand side. We already have the equal 0 on the right-hand side. We first look to see if there are any common factors between all the terms, and there are none. And we notice a coefficient that is not 1 on the x squared. That means this is one of the harder trinomials to factor because that leading coefficient is not 1. So there are many different methods that you can use to solve this. I'm going to use a method that involves grouping, and it can go by a bunch of different names. So it starts off by doing a little bit of work on the side. You're going to multiply the leading coefficient a of 5 by the constant term 8, which is c. We have 5, 8 is 40. And what we are looking for is factors of 40 that add to the middle coefficient, 22. So let's write down some factors of 40. That's 1 times 40, 2 times 20, 4 times 10, 5 times 8. I notice this pair of factors here that when I add them, I get 22. That's the pair that I'm looking for. 2 times 20 is 40, and 2 plus 20 is 22. Once I figure out that pair of factors, I want to rewrite my trinomial with 4 terms. I'm going to leave the first term alone, I'm going to leave the last term alone, and I'm going to split the middle term. We're going to do plus 20x plus 2x, 8. So now we went from having 3 terms to having 4 terms. When we have 4 terms, we can factor by grouping. We're going to group terms at a time together, and factor the greatest common factor out of each group. The greatest common factor with the first group is 5x, and I'm left with x plus 4. The greatest common factor out of the second group is 2, and I'm left with x plus 4. And now I only have two terms, and these two terms have a common binomial. I'm going to factor that common binomial out of x plus 4, and I'm left with 5x plus 2. So I was able to factor 5x squared plus 22x plus 8 to be x plus 4 times 5x plus 2. Once you have it factored, you're going to use the zero product property. The first factor is equal to 0, or the second factor, 5x plus 2, equals 0. We're going to solve for x. By subtracting 4, we get x equals negative 4. We're going to subtract 2, and we get 5x equals negative 2. Divide by 5, and we get our solution of negative 2 over 5 and negative 4. So we've solved that equation. We factored using this grouping method. Use the zero product property to set each factor equal to 0. On this example, we want to find all real solutions to the equation negative 2r squared minus 32r equals negative 8r cubed minus 8. The first thing I want to do is move all the terms to the same side so that we can create 0 on one side of the equation. I'm going to move these terms to the left-hand side, and that will give us the equation 8r cubed minus 2r squared minus 32r plus 8 equals 0. Now that I have all the terms on the same side with 0 on the other side, I'm going to see if there is anything in common between all the terms. Let's make this correction. This should be negative 32r. And I notice that these are all even numbers, so I'm going to factor out a 2 of all these terms, and I'll have 4r cubed minus r squared minus 8r, 4 equals 0. I'm going to group two terms at a time and factor the greatest common factor out of each group. This is something that I'm clued into doing because there are 4 terms. Factoring by grouping is a very common method whenever you have 4 terms. So out of the first group, I'm going to factor out an r squared. If I factor that out, I'll be left with 4r minus 1. The second group has a greatest common factor of 4, and I'll factor a negative 4 out. And I'll be left with r minus 1. If factoring by grouping is working for you, you'll have a common binomial here. If I factor that out, I'll have 4r minus 1 times r squared minus 4 equals 0. And let me carry that 2 down as well. This r squared minus 4 is a difference of squares, and it will factor to be r minus 2 times r plus 2. And finally, now that I've factored this completely, I'm going to set each factor equal to 0. 4r minus 1 equals 0, r minus 2 equals 0, r plus 2 equals 0. I'll add 1 to both sides. We get 4r equals 1. Divide by 4, and r equals 1/4. I'm going to add 2. We get r equals 2. I'll subtract 2 and get r equals negative 2. This gives me 3 solutions to our equation: 1/4, 2, and negative 2.
Thank you for checking out my videos. Have a great day.